Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day to day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, we are going to be continuing our conversation about AI, but we're going to be looking at one of the most foundational things that you need to have in place in order to get any kind of meaningful results from it. And so whether you are using AI in the more kind of ping pong prompt back and forth way that a lot of businesses started leveraging it, or whether you've evolved into more usage of AI agents and kind of building out AI employees and some of the more advanced functionality for today that will be old news pretty soon because things move and change so quickly, depending on whatever your use case is. One of the things that you have probably found is that quite often, although the possibility of what can be done is really enticing, although there may be certain efficiencies gained in things, there's still probably quite a bit of either rework, especially if there's something content related where it may not sound like you, it may use language or phrasing or terminology or M dashes or things that don't really fit the way that you naturally speak and the words that you naturally use or the way that you naturally structure sentences or structure even the way that you would write emails or set up landing pages and set up your web page and things of that nature, right? And so there's often some bit of discrepancy between what you would normally do and things that sound like you and what comes out when you're using AI, regardless of how great your prompts are, how great the skills that you're using are, how great the AI is that you've built from an employee perspective, no matter how good you've trained it, no matter how great of a list you've given it of the things not to say and not to do, no matter how many examples you've plugged in of the way you write and the things that you do. There's just certain patterning and certain things that AI tends to do, even if you followed everything that you're taught to follow, or you've used someone else's pre-trained, tool or skill or something that they've given you. This is just very common, something that you see. And that's on kind of the content side. Now, when we look broader than content and we start to look at some of the other functionality in your business, maybe it's replying to emails, maybe it's handling some of your client onboarding, maybe it's summarizing some action steps or looking at how clients are progressing and the sort of performance results that they're getting from a client perspective. Maybe it's sending you different performance reports or doing a morning briefing or helping you craft and pull together different proposals. Maybe there's different functions that you have AI supporting you with, either again, in a looking for ideation or looking for feedback on something, or whether you have things happening autonomously and you have AI fully owning and executing and running things on some kind of preset schedule, right? Whichever way you're doing this, what frequently ends up happening, again, is sometimes it's mostly there, sometimes it's barely there, but there still seems to be a disconnect from the way that you want things done, the way things fit your business and your culture and your working style and your expectations and your level of quality and your values and your vision and all of those pieces. There tends to be a bit of a disconnect. And so, why I wanted to anchor on that and share that today is when you think about what foundational things you want in place for AI to be able to truly work autonomously. Not even what it does today, but as we look to the future a little bit and just imagine a world where you have real legit AI employees who are doing things and you are not having to regularly check them or have other people check them. And I'm going to caveat this huge caveat here to say there is a very intentional review cycle in getting things right and ensuring that you trust for things to go. And then there is a continuous evolution cycle where nothing remains static. So what works today may not work tomorrow. So this is not fully 100% hands off. But let's just look at a place where you've got it trained enough, you trust it well enough, and things are stable enough in the business that you would trust something to autonomously run and operate for you. Well, what would need to be true for that to happen so you're not embarrassed by something that went to a client? So you're not putting out fires and handling people who are angry or upset or didn't have the experience they expected or were promised something that you had no intention of delivering because something got misstated. So there's not content that went out in an email or on your website or on a social post that sounds nothing like you, where maybe something was misrepresented or misinterpreted, or it just came out in pure slop. I mean, some of the stuff I see online is just, anyway, you've seen it too. You know what I'm talking about. Um, and so how do you get to the point where you have enough confidence in what's happening that you truly can allow it to run without it being yet another thing that you're spending half of your day going in and reviewing and fixing and correcting? Like, how do you get things to that point? And if we think about the ability to get things to that point, well, whether it's AI that's doing it for you or whether it's a person that's doing it for you, what you would have to put in place foundationally for that to be possible is gonna be universally true. There's some nuance to it if you're training AI and setting things up in a particular way for how AI actually operates and runs things. If you're using Claude, for example, there's a certain way to build your skills. There's a certain way to set up your projects. If you're connecting Claude to Obsidian, there's a certain way to structure that so that it works really well, right? And so there's always different ways that you're gonna do something a little bit differently for an AI-based employee or an AI-based team versus a human-based employee or team, but the foundations, the core fundamentals are the same. And so often, I know I've said this a lot on prior episodes, but it's worth repeating, and I will say it again and probably again after that too is the best possible results that you will get from AI start outside of AI. It is not actually AI related at all, right? It's the foundational things. It's the more clear you are on who you are and what you do and why you do what you do and what your values are and what your vision is and why you do what you do and why you don't do what you don't do. And it's the more clarity that you have there, the better your team is going to do and the better your AI is going to do. And all of this is where I see gaps in the business. There are very few businesses, if any, that I've worked with that don't have some gaps in these areas. And there is a core root cause behind this because I've shared on many prior episodes what it takes to get a founder out of the day to day operations, right? And if you think about it realistically, if you had a business that was built around you, or maybe you still currently have a business that's built around you, it is one thing to build some systems, it's one thing to, define your processes and your SOPs, it's another thing to build up a team, whether it's an AI team or a human team or both, right? There's all of these things that you can do that on the surface should give you back more time. But if the entire business is literally built around you, or if you are the only one who understands how to make certain decisions or whether or not you should pursue certain opportunities or how to handle certain situations because of the depth and the breadth of experience that you bring to the table, and just because of some of that stuff that's so deeply inherent in who you are and how you think and what you do, that it's hard for you to even put it into words, right? When you think about all of that, Well, it doesn't matter if you do all those other things because you will only see incremental amounts of freedom. You won't fully be able to elevate yourself out of the day to day realistically until you redesign the business to not be built around you. And so that's something that I've taught for a really long time. You've heard me talk about that through the context of my extraction program. And one of the things that I've noticed is there is a foundational piece that is like the underpinning of all of that being possible. And it's something I've always done with our clients and Simplify to Scale. It's something I do with my private clients. It's something I do with anyone who's about to start either building out a team for the first time or starting to like really build out a team. Maybe they've had contractors and freelancers and some people working for them, but they're ready to build a real full team. Full-time team members, people who are going to be truly running or growing and scaling their business for them. We go through a series of exercises. We go through a different level of extraction with the founder. And what we do is the piece that I'm finding is not only really critical to make that possible, but it's the piece that I'm finding that's missing in what most people are trying to do with AI, why they're not getting a lot of the results that they want to get. And it is being able to codify, it's being able to communicate, it's being able to fully extract what makes you you. What are those filters that you run things through that helps you be able to discern what is right and what isn't in a split second that you could give your team all of the feedback in the world and they somehow still can't quite grasp? You could tell AI 1,000 times over to stop saying this and don't do this, and would you stop using the word quiet and loud and all of the other things that it says on repeat, like all of that feedback that you give, it's great. Everyone will tell you, make sure that you write your anti list, just like the things you want it to do. Make sure you tell it what not to do. Yes, everyone tells you that. But if you find it still doesn't fully work, there's some very specific reasons why it doesn't work. And so, what I typically end up doing with people is again, I help figure out the things that are the hardest for them to be able to communicate to somebody else, the hardest for them to be able to document or share with someone. And it's because there's things that we naturally do that sometimes we're not even conscious we're doing, or because we've got this swirl of like, just think for a moment of all the different jobs you've ever held in your life. From the very first time you ever did anything, like you exchanged something of value for money or for something in exchange. Like this could be when you were a kid, it could be when you were very young. I know I started working full time when I was 15. And before that, I had paper routes and babysitting routes, and I used to sell art and jewelry and, like, the whole 9 yards, right? You probably did something different. Think through all of the different, like, disparate experiences that you've had that somehow got you to where you are now, right? How do you take all of those experiences combined with however many years you've had building those experiences and break them down into something that you could easily tell somebody who maybe is half your age? Or maybe is twice your age, or maybe has come from an entirely different background and an entirely different set of experiences. Maybe they operate at an entirely different level than you. Maybe they have a totally different way of thinking. You're kind of visionary to operator. And so if you think about the fact that nobody else has your set of experiences, nobody else has your same set of skills, nobody else has your same lived experiences in life, even outside of your work experiences. Well, you bring a natural set of filters and views of how you see things, and views of the world, different perceptions and different instincts and different intuition and different, like, both deep knowing as well as lived experience combined all into one swirl that allows you to, in a second, be like, that's not the right fit for us. Yeah, no, that's never going to fly. Our clients aren't going to buy that. We need to change that wording. Like, you could in a split second do that, and somebody else is like, "I don't understand." I don't see what to change. Why would we say no to this opportunity? Or I don't understand why on earth she would say yes to this opportunity. Is that even a good opportunity? Right? And so you're able to do these things in just like a split second because you are the swirl of all those things. And then let's layer on top of it what makes you uniquely you? Like, just think for a moment of personality tests. I love personality tests. Or not even personality tests, like archetypes and different things. I love knowing my human design and my gene keys, and I've done all the tests under the sun, right? And if you take all of those different things that look at how you're naturally wired to make decisions, how you're naturally wired in leadership situations and stressful situations. You take all of your natural wiring combined with your lived experiences and your upbringing, the things that help you operate at your very best and the things that bring out the absolute worst in you, right? If you know human design, there's a not self theme. My not self theme is frustration, right? You could always tell if I am in a place of frustration, I will not be operating at my best at all, right? And so, like, what are those things for you? If my team knows that frustration is the place I do not like to be, you better believe they're paying really close attention to what frustrates me. And your team should probably know those sorts of things too. And so there's all of these things that swirl together that make up who you are as a person, as the founder of your business. And then there is the equivalent of those things when you look at the business as an entity itself. Depending on your business model, sometimes there's a lot of separation between those two. But in most businesses that I partner with and in most businesses I work with, they tend to be founder-led businesses, and because they're founder-led businesses, there is a big overlap between the founder and the business as far as kinda what makes it what it is. But either way, no matter how much overlap there is, if you picture 2 circles in a Venn diagram, right? No matter if it's, like, just a little blip of an overlap or if those circles are practically right on top of one another. Either way, your business in and of itself has its own kinda DNA. It has its own identity, and there's, like, this entire universe that is built around your business when you look at the ideal clients and what the purpose is and what the promise is that you're making to your clients, and the specific path that you take people on, your signature framework or the way that you do things. There's things that make your business unique and memorable and different from other people who might do different or from other businesses that might do something separate, just like there's things that make you unique and very magnetic that is different from other people who may do something similar to what you do. And so when you think about both of these, I call the business lens the universe, and I call your lens your genius, right? I mean, I love The Big Leap. I love Gay Hendricks. I don't think anybody needs to redefine your zone of genius to anything more pithy because I think he described it so incredibly well. And so to me, right, the business lens is your universe and your lens is your genius. And it's like, how do you extract both of those out? And some people are crystal clear on one of those. Some people are crystal clear on both of those. Some people are crystal clear on neither of those. There might be pieces of it they're clear on, but there's other pieces they're not clear on, right? Some people could tell you in a heartbeat exactly when they are not at their best, but they aren't quite sure what makes them at their best. Others can do the opposite. Some could tell you, "Oh, yeah, well, I can make a decision really quickly over here because for 10 years I did this, and I used to be a waitress, and let me tell you, when you're a waitress, you learn how to handle angry customers and difficult situations, and you've gotta learn to think on your feet, and you've gotta learn to" and so I could do this because I waitressed, right? And meanwhile, the person is a huge spiritual coach, and you'd never think anything about waitressing, right? And so some people can kinda tick and tie together some of those different pieces. But other people aren't really quite sure how. They don't really know how their life and their experiences and the signature framework that they developed and how it all fits together to make things different in a way that they could communicate to a human or to an AI team member to be able to go off and make decisions and be discerning and do things in the way that they would. And so the third piece of this is the layer that I call your code. And your code, I said, I help people codify things. Like, this is your code. This is your why. This is why you do what you do. It's why you do what you don't do. It's how you take all of those other different pieces and put it together into, like, what's your philosophy? What do you believe? What are the principles that you follow behind everything? What are the specific practices that you have in place as a business? Like, how do you work as a business? What are the absolutes, like the always and the nevers? Most things in business fall in the middle, but there are some things where you are like, listen, every single time we do this, this must be true, or we need to make sure this is never true. And businesses always have that. That usually ties back to some of your core fundamental beliefs. Maybe you have an absolute that you will not, under any circumstances, use fake urgency. Maybe you will not use language that makes somebody buy out of fear, right? There's all of these different things that are unique to every business, where if you put two businesses, almost the exact same website, almost the exact same set of services, almost the exact same number of team members, high level resumes of those team members look about the same as far as like experience goes. And there is no two businesses that are going to be the same, regardless of on the surface, if it looks like they are. Because when you get to the heart of the universe, which is the business, the genius, which is the founder, and the code, which is why and why not, all of a sudden there is something very unique about that business. Something very unique about the way that business approaches things and does things and decides things. And that is the part that is the hardest for a founder to effectively communicate, because sometimes they don't even know how to put it into words. It makes it possible to be able to fully extract yourself in a way that is much more challenging to do without it. And sometimes businesses get lucky and they hire just the right person. They hire a unicorn, and that unicorn is able to connect dots and see patterns and hear the unspoken things between the things that you say and figure out and piece together how to make decisions like you and how to have the same level of discernment as you and how to handle customers in the same way that you would and how to deliver the same level of quality that you would. It happens. It does. But it's not that common, and you have to rely on finding a unicorn. And then when you find them, you feel so deeply tied to them that your business either moved from being dependent on you to being dependent on them, or worse, it now has dependency on two people. And it feels like it would fall apart without either of those people. So that in and of itself is not necessarily the best solution. Yeah, it's great when you can find that unicorn. And I know I've been that person for other people in their business. I tend to train and mentor and certify those people in my CSOO program, right? Like, it's great to have the unicorn when you got them on your team, but there are some risks that can come with that. And especially when it still lives with a person fully. So it's either mostly inherently inside you, or it's mostly now inherently inside that person, where it starts to create more freedom for you, for them, for the business as a whole, is when it lives somewhere else. It could be in your company playbook for your team to use. It could be built into the foundation of how you use AI, which is what I highly recommend you do both. You have it in a company playbook for your team to leverage, and you have it in your AI that your agents and your automations and all of your other capabilities are built on top of. This ends up giving your human team what they need. It makes onboarding so much easier. People come up to speed much quicker. You save a ton of time. You save so much headache. It makes the things that your team does from a client perspective so much more consistent. Things don't vary dramatically between when someone works with you versus them, or between different people if you have multiple people that are client facing. They're able to make decisions without constantly second guessing and wondering if you're going to come in and change it or not like what they did. Your AI is gonna stop creating complete and total slop. And there is a trick, by the way, to giving it the things not to do and not to say that is different than what most people tell you to do. Because if you've ever tried to give AI a list of all the things not to say and not to do and realized its writing got worse and it ignores those rules most of the time anyway, it's because there's a certain order and a certain way that you need to give it instructions, and you need to build up the specific skills and projects that you're developing in order for it to work properly. So if you've wanted to throw your computer through a window, or if you have had a very strong cursing match with Claude or with ChatGPT or Gemini or whichever tool that you use, because for the 400,000th time, it either avoided your rules, forgot the thing you just told it not to do again, even though it already had it clearly specified what not to do, and then it somehow completely lost your voice when it was trying to fix the things it shouldn't have done in the first place. Sometimes all it takes is reordering some of what you do and putting a few very specific pieces of languages, and it fixes it all. But really, it gives your AI the ability to run autonomously where it should and to produce the right outputs, the right guidance, the right advisory, the right thinking partnership, the right ideation partnership. It gives it the ability to do all of that in a way that supports you, your style, your business, your code of how and why you do and don't do things. And all of that for you, that gives you back so much peace of mind. It closes so many tabs that are probably open in your brain. The hours that you spend constantly reviewing things and correcting things and fixing things and explaining something for the 27th time and moving into, if you are me, your not self theme of frustration. Whatever your not self theme is, it would show up in that way, right? All of that time that goes towards it, and then all of that distraction and impact on your productivity and focus that happens as a result of it and the constant interruptions, that all goes away. So when you do elevate out of the day to day, when you do get to spend your time on the things you want to be spending it on, whether it's that you like genuinely miss getting to work with clients or lead your programs, which you don't seem to have as much time for because of everything else you're doing. If it's that you don't want to do any of that and you want to elevate out more to spend time writing your next book or speaking on more stages or traveling more or just simply having a little bit of a life back, like all those things that I share often, those rich, fulfilled life items that are so meaningful to you. It's whatever those are, when you take the time to focus on them, you can let go of that fear that everything is going to boomerang right back to you, especially if that's been your experience in the past, which it is for a lot of people. And so to me, this is that like foundational element that you wanna have in place that not only starts to save you time right away and starts to remove dependency on you right away and all of those sorts of things, which are huge benefits in and of themselves, but to me, like, the best part of it is the relief that you feel, the possibility that opens up for you, and the ability to actually focus without, like, the death by a thousand paper cuts, constant, like, "Do you have a second? Can you take a quick look at this? Can I just ask you a quick question? Do you have just a minute?" Like, all those things that are innocent and well-meaning in the moment from somebody, but that just pull your focus away and make it so that the only time you can get really meaningful work done is during time that you should be spending with family or with friends or on health or self-care or those things that you should be doing outside your business that actually really call to you or fuel you. And so to me, this is where it all starts. This is the piece that's often missing. And when you have this in place, and when you're able to free up some of that focus, free up some of that time, free up so much of that just energy, and step into that place where you're thinking more visionary, you're thinking more about possibility, you're looking more to the future because you feel like you finally have your head above everything. That's when all of a sudden you can start looking at and making the changes to the structural pieces where the business is still built around you. You're able to remove so much of the dependency on you at that first level of things, the really meaningful things, that then all of a sudden it starts to feel possible that, like, wait a minute, maybe I don't have to be the only person that delivers this because I can actually trust my team to do this now. Or maybe I can actually do this other offer that I've been wanting to do for the longest time, but I didn't have the bandwidth to do, and I've now freed up the time for. Or maybe I can now bring in that really fantastic high ticket person that I've been wanting to bring into my team, but I didn't feel like I could because I've got AI doing so much of the repetitive day-to-day stuff that I can keep my team lean and fill it with complete and total power players that are gonna be able to take my business to places that I feel like I would have had to have waited years to get to, right? And so all of this is what starts to become possible. And I see so many people say, "Oh, yeah, no, I trained my business brain. I've got a business brain." And I'm like, "Cool, that's great." And I'm sure there's elements of that that are fantastic, but I bet there is still a lot that does not work exactly the way you expected. There is probably a lot that still keeps coming out that's slop and that doesn't meet your standards and that doesn't quite sound like you and that doesn't quite match the way that you think or doesn't quite do what you would do. And it's because those 3 things need to come together, and as I shared, a lot of times people have a hard time putting into words what it is and how it is that makes these things, like, what makes your business your business? What makes it so unique? What makes you so unique? What is your essence? Like, what is it that makes you you? How and why do you do what you do? Like, what's the deep, deep why and thinking and principles behind what you do? What are the philosophies in which you follow that you don't even do all the time on a conscious level? Like, those sorts of things are so hard for people to be able to communicate and identify or even take the time to get together. I have a way of asking questions and eliciting that out of people that gets at the heart of it in a way that most people struggle to get to on their own or struggle to get to when they buy somebody's skill or prompt or something and then try to fill it in. And if that's something that you'd like to do together, I actually have 2 really cool, really exciting things coming up that I wanna tell you about. The very first one is come join me in Austin. You know, I just moved to Austin. If you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me talk about that. Austin is a cool place to be. Where I lived before, I did not ever invite anybody to come join me, but now I live in a place that most people want to actually come to. So I decided I'm gonna do something a little bit lower key than what I normally do for in-person events, but I'm gonna host a 3-day in-person event in June where we are gonna build this all out together. I'm doing a small circle group of founders. We're gonna come together and we are going to build what I'm calling your visionary operating system, which is what I walked you through in this episode. We are going to build that together. And then because we're doing this together in person for 3 days, we are going to take that and we are going to layer on top of it what I call your founder frequency. And this is a program that's coming out. You can join both the Extraction, the 1-day intensive, which is about building your visionary OS, and also the Founder Frequency as a 6-week program. So you could do the 1-day intensive plus the 6-week program and do that fully virtual. 1-day intensive is the first week in June, and then the 6-week Founder Frequency starts towards the end of June. Or you can just come out to Austin, spend 3 full days with me and a group of amazing entrepreneurs and get it all done. Get away from your desk, have time away from everything, have a group of other people to mastermind with and ask questions of, have my insight and support, have Jess from my team's insight and support, and come and hang with us for 3 days. Like I said, we're going to keep it pretty low key because this is about rolling up your sleeves and getting work done. You are going to leave with your visionary OS installed and done. You are going to leave with your founder frequency in place, which takes that visionary operating system and it starts to layer on top of it the things that allow you to actually operate as the visionary leader of your business. There is an engine that we're going to build right into Claude that is going to help you with handling difficult conversations and different things with leading your team, your human team, that are going to simplify all of that for you. There's a compass that we're going to build out looking at the performance of your business. Automated recurring reporting that shows up in your inbox once per week that shows you only the things that you actually need to pay attention to as the visionary of the business. We're going to build an opportunity advisor so that when an opportunity comes into the business, you're able to assess really quickly whether it's a good fit for you or not, or have your team do it based on where your business is going, based on your natural strengths, based on your code of what works and what doesn't. So you can jump in and take advantage of the opportunities that are the right fit, and you can not spend unnecessary cycles on ones that are not the right fit. Same thing with offers. There's an offer optimizer that is absolutely fantastic. It is built on top of my lean scaling system. It's built on top of the scalable offer suite system, the lean scalable offer suite system, LSOS, that I teach people inside my certification programs and that I do with the founders inside my Simplify to Scale program. And so this gets at the offer suite that you have, and it starts to analyze and optimize how to make it more scalable and how to make it more profitable without adding more time, and it helps you look at ways where you could remove your own time without impacting the client experience. That is a really, really, really fantastic one that we are going to do together. So it's part brainstorming and talking about your offer suite when we do this in person together, and also building out that skill inside Claude that you can use and that your team can use. We're going to do the visionary planner. And so strategic planning has multiple levels, and most founders themselves don't really want to be spending their time in planning. They have their team do planning, but they don't necessarily want to spend their time in planning. And as a result, sometimes the things that your team works really hard on end up not actually connected back to the vision that you have. And so this is a way to be able to communicate your vision and your priorities and the strategies that are important to you in a way that your team can take and pull into their planning process so that everything always connects back and you know that you're getting exactly where you want to go in the most direct path without wasting all sorts of time and money and energy on things that just aren't right for the business or are not a priority right now. And then finally, the last piece that we're going to build, this is one of the most exciting things of all of it, and it's called your inner sage. And if you think sometimes, do you know how like we always say, like, I wish I could do for myself what I could do for my clients? Because often you are the most amazing person for your clients. It's why they come to you, but you typically have to hire somebody else to help you with that very same thing in your own business or in your own personal life because what we do best for others, we sometimes cannot see and do for ourselves. We can't coach ourselves in the same way. Well, what if you could? What if you could take your own wisdom, your own advice, your own everything, and turn it into a way to have conversations basically almost with your higher self in a way, but your higher business self? And they could be guiding you and giving you feedback on the pieces of things that you advise other people on. It's pretty cool. You could either use it yourself or this works for your team where they can work with that version of you before having to bring things to you and get your feedback and your insights in the exact same way that you would give them if you were in an actual conversation. And so this is what we're doing together. There's 2 paths. There is come do it with me virtually. We're gonna do a one-day intensive first week in June, and then we're gonna start a 6-week towards the end of June together. Or just come and hang with me and a small group of other absolutely amazing business owners, and we're gonna do this together in person over 3 days. You'll find all the details in the show notes below. But I would love to have you come and spend some time, play together. This is literally I'm thinking of it like a playground. I really want AI to help us make business flippin' fun again. Could business just be fun again? Like, let's come together and get stuff done that you never have time for, ever. And you keep saying, I really need to do this. And then you feel guilty that you're not doing it. So you just buy a skill that somebody promises is going to solve world's hunger for you. And so you just buy a skill or buy a program or do a thing that somebody promises is gonna, like, deliver all these results, and you just install it and go, and it's done, right? And instead, take the time that it needs to actually extract out of yourself what is right for you instead of taking what somebody else has and trying to plug it into and force fit it into what you have. Do and build something that is fully 100% you and set up your AI in a way that can actually support scaling your business without everything being dependent on you. And at the same time, support your team to be able to work more autonomously and to be able to really truly run, grow, and scale your business without everything coming back to you. I would love to have you come and do this with me. Links are in the show notes. If you are doing this on your own, make sure that you are getting really clear on what your universe is, what your genius is, and what your code is. I hope you got a lot of value out of this episode. I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.